Greetings, programs. Welcome to episode 22. No, you don't know how to argue. Today's episode was going to be why it's bad to murder and rape people, which was going to be an ethical exploration of why things are considered bad, a morality thing. But instead, it's more of a response video or ranty thing, talking about basically another one in the series of you do not know how to argue properly, or you do not know how to logic. Which is in response to a series of posts that people have made on the internet, which I'm responding to. So what am I responding to? Well, basically, the usual stupid comments on the internet, specifically YouTube. Okay, nothing new there, but what did they actually say? Well, it was a comment where somebody else was bashing Trumpets, Trump supporters. And somebody was commenting that they were gullible, stupid, and mean-spirited, and I commented that I think some are, but I think the rest of them are ignorant or perhaps desperate. Desperate for change, perhaps. Okay, so what? Standard stuff. Well, the comment that came in response was, okay, brony. And my response to that was, why is that a bad thing? And it reminded me of, like, the playground when you were 6, when somebody just says something like, you're black. Or you're a Jew, or you're a girl, or you're a whatever. As if the simple existence of that quality in you was somehow bad. But if you actually challenge somebody like that, so okay, why is it bad to be a Jew? They have no response, because they don't really know. All they know is this is a quality of bad person, and you are bad by having it. And the same kind of thing happened here. And it was interesting watching the development of the total non-argument that they had. Here's their response. Because you're a grown-ass man watching a little girl's TV show, and you have atheist in your name, which makes it even worse. You probably watch anime as well. Now just let that sink in for a second. We'll ignore the atheist bit for now. A lot of religious type people find that the existence of atheists is just a threat. Because obviously if people can live without God, that suggests that it's possible to live without God, and who knows, maybe they're right. No, that's not the issue. The issue is the implication that if you watch cartoons or anime, you are wrong, and this is bad, somehow. Now, as we'll discover, I kept challenging them over and over on why is this bad, and got complete non-answers. A lot. Now, as it happens, I don't consider myself a brony. Sure, I have a My Little Pony avatar, but then I got that off of a friend. I don't think I've actually watched an entire episode of My Little Pony. In fact, my entire exposure to it is reading a transhuman fan fiction that is only loosely related to My Little Pony, called My Little Pony Friendship is Optimal, and watching some clips on YouTube. That's about the size of it. But okay, let's say I'm a brony. Why is it bad to be a brony? Why is it bad to watch anime? As it happens, I have a friend who's a big fan of anime and keeps trying to inflict this stuff on me, and I don't like it very much. But okay, let's say I'm a big anime fan, and I'm a brony. Why is that bad? And literally, their only argument, for much of the argument, was grown men aren't supposed to like shows made for children. And anime is dumb. Now just pause for a second. Really, does that sound like the kind of argument an adult would make? It really does just scream, I'm in the playground and I'm 6 all over again. And here's possibly the worst bit. I asked them again, why is this bad? And their response is, I already gave you reasons. Which I think is symptomatic of a lot of the problems we see in modern day society. See, what they actually did was give me an opinion. I don't like this thing. Okay, sure. No one said you had to be a fan of, I don't know, My Little Pony, or classic Batman, or anime, or whatever. Okay, no worries. I'm not a fan of anime, for example. But I don't look down on other people who do like it. And really, why would I? I mean, it's like looking down on somebody who likes steak when you like chicken. It's like, I have this taste, you have that taste. That doesn't make the other person wrong. And literally, their next post is, why are you so dumb? A kid's show is meant for kids, not adults. You, who is grown up, is watching the said show. Anybody with half a brain sees something wrong with that. Now this basically operates on two fronts. On the one front, it takes us back to the very first video, which is essentialism. The idea that any given thing has an essence or magic which makes it a thing. This is the same sort of thing. By saying, this is what the intent is, anything other than what the intent is wrong, because you're not doing what it's intended to do. So for example, a wheelbarrow might be intended for carrying mounds of dirt or rubble or whatever from one place to another. But any number of people have taken an old wheelbarrow, filled it full of compost and used it as a planter. Why not? But you're not doing what it's supposed to be done with. Same as people who have taken old cars that are all wrecked and painted them up and filled them with dirt and turned them into a planter. Or the classic, taking one of those old CRT TVs, cracking open the tube and putting a terrarium inside it or a fish tank. Using things for new purposes. There's probably a name for the fallacy, but I don't know what it is. The fallacy of, if you're not using this thing for its quote-unquote intended purpose, then you are doing it wrong, and that is bad. The other aspect of that is called argumentum ad fastidium, or appeal to disgust, or argument from disgust. See footnote number 1 for the Rational Wiki page on this, which in syllogistic format goes like this. Premise 1, X is gross. Premise 2, gross things are wrong. Conclusion, X is wrong. Or in practical terms, ew, 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 ew. And from the wiki, the explanation. Being gross is not inherently tied to being wrong. Grossness determined wrongness, then wrongness would change over time. Miscegenation would become acceptable, while racism would become unacceptable, solely because it discomforts most people. Furthermore, the definition of gross varies across cultures, regions, communities, and even individuals. This suggests that grossness is arbitrary and subjective rather than objective truth. In addition, gross often appears to correlate much more highly with survival mechanisms, e.g. avoiding eating shit, rather than actual rational thought. For example, gays. Conservatives and fundamentalists often discuss homosexuality using words of revulsion and seek imagery to portray that disgust. This may be because disgust correlates highly with conservative self-identification, which I have covered in a previous video, why can't conservatives handle trans people, and also why I can handle head rushers and conservatives cannot. Now, eventually, later on, their argument, after I had instructed them 2 or 3 times how to actually make an argument, I am helpful that way, they actually tried their best to make an argument. Now, it was a fallacious argument, but they actually managed something rather than just saying, you watch cartoons. And here's what they came up with. You might find it a bit laughy. Wake up and leave your little fantasy land. Bronies do bad things. Creating overly sexualized pornography of MLP characters, dressing in crude MLP costumes, and bullying anybody who disagrees with them. Is that a good enough reason, or do you need more? Innocent kids who search up MLP on the internet are seeing these things and are falling into a trap they can't escape. That's why it's bad for adults to like things made for children. Children see a creative pony wonderland and adults see something much more vile. I have been on the internet since the birth of bronies. I have seen what they are capable of. Just because they act cute and innocent doesn't mean they are. Ego has no part in this, so quit bringing it up. This is based on morals. And here's the ironic bit. People who paint their nails and cross-dress don't expose innocent minds to things they don't want to see. I wish I could say the same for bronies. How ironic that this is essentially a standard conservative argument, but they're not complaining about people who cross-dress or trans people or what have you. That's rare. So that's their argument. My Little Pony fans, who are not children, bronies, do gross things, and that makes it wrong. Which brings us right back to the argument from disgust. So what if there's My Little Pony porn? There's Tomb Raider porn. There's insert famous person here porn. Really badly acted pornographic knockoffs of Pirates of the Caribbean. Which brings us back to the argument from disgust. Just because you don't like a thing does not make it wrong. It makes it a thing that you do not like. To be honest, on later analysis, it seems just as though they went searching on the internet and found some Rule 34 My Little Pony porn and were grossed out. And that's literally their entire argument. The argument from ew, I don't like it. So let's kick it up a notch. Let's say they're right. Let's say all bronies, and I'll identify as a brony now because I think I want to be. But let's say all bronies do some extreme sexual stuff. And I'm not kink shaming here, but I'm trying to find something that's fairly low percentage for people. So let's pick German Scheiße porn. Scat. Doing things with poop, if you're not familiar. Now, it's not my kink, but I don't look down on people if it is theirs. So, hey. So if it is your kink, I'm not shaming you. I'm just picking something that's extreme, that is unlikely to be a chosen favourite of the majority of the population. Otherwise, it wouldn't be one of those things we don't talk about, would it? So let's say all bronies are into porn, and all bronies are into scat, things with poop. And let's, for the sake of argument, say that's gross and disgusting. Okay, cool. Does that make it wrong to be a brony? No. It just means you're into a kink that isn't to everybody else's taste and is somewhat a minority as kinks go. For example, spanking is one of the more common kinks that is so common, so trivialized, so unimportant as most people just think, huh, and move on. No, that's not how an argument works. In the end, you have to bring it down to evidence. At the basis of everything is evidence. Even if this evidence is implied, such as, for example, when you end an argument with, and that leads to people getting killed. We can assume, because we all have a common frame of reference for most things, that people getting killed is a bad thing. But the thing is, that's the thing we can then justify. Saying this is gross isn't an argument. It's an opinion. It's an expression of taste. It's you saying, I don't like this thing. That's okay. You're allowed to not like things. But you not liking it doesn't mean that it's objectively wrong. It just means it's not for you. And the same goes for the brony argument. Bronies do things that I consider gross, therefore it's wrong. No. That's a group of people doing a thing that you don't find to your taste. And that's okay. They're allowed to. And so are you. The problem, I think, and I'm just guessing here, is that like many things, it comes down to ego. That a lot of people can't let go of the idea that their personal preferences are not universal. They are only personal preferences, not the hidden truth of the universe. So if you don't like a thing, that doesn't mean that the thing is wrong. It just means that you're a person who doesn't like that thing. And that's okay. You're allowed to not like things. But it still doesn't make it wrong. And also, it probably wouldn't hurt to look past that disgust of whatever that is. I will point out that where I live, one of the delicacies of the region is a giant maggot that lives in a rotten log that is the size of your thumb. And you can eat them raw or cooked, whereupon they are somewhat tasting like peanut butter. And a lot of people would consider that to be the most disgusting thing ever. Whereas locally, it's just a delicacy. And I'm not kidding, these things are really, really big. They're called hoo-hoo grubs if you want to Google them. See footnote number 2 for a picture of a hoo-hoo grub, which is a giant ugly ass maggot. So that's all for today. Hopefully a shorter episode. To wrap up, just because you think it's gross doesn't mean it's wrong, it just means it's not to your taste. And people watching cartoons that you don't like doesn't make them wrong either. Tune in next week when we will very probably be looking at why it is actually wrong to murder people. Another one of those things that seems so super obvious that you don't need an explanation. And yet, if you ask somebody, why is it wrong to murder people? 9 times out of 10 they'll just stare blankly at you. And wouldn't you think that something that important you should really know an answer to? Well, that's what we'll be discussing next week. Bye for now.